What would you tell someone who was interested in converting to Judaism? Welcome back. I'm Gila Ross, host of the Power Up podcast, where we share short, relatable ideas to upgrade and impact your everyday life. And in this episode, together with the Wednesday night group, we take a look at what we would tell someone who wanted to convert and what is really Judaism all about. Okay, so if someone was interested in converting to Judaism, I'm just going to let Doris in. Someone was interested in converting to Judaism. What 3 or 4 commandments would you tell them about Judaism? Now, I'm going to clarify the question a little bit. You're not necessarily trying to sell them Judaism. You're trying to explain what Judaism is to them so they can kind of make an informed decision. So what would you, 3 or 4 commandments that you would tell them?
Keeping kosher.
Okay, keeping kosher is one. And whatever, you can all weigh in. So no one has to kind of feel that, once it's said, it's been said.
Respecting your mother and father.
Interesting.
Everybody.
Respecting your parents. Okay. Keeping interesting. We have someone on Instagram who is saying, I have a meeting for my conversion at the end of this month. Very interesting topic. So let's make it very relevant to you. Is what would you say? So far we've got keeping kosher, we've got what did we say? Respecting parents. What else? What sort of commandments would you tell them about? Hi. So just for anyone that's just joining now, the question is, if there was someone, a potential convert, right, that was coming, and you wanted to explain to them what 3 or 4 commandments would you tell them about Judaism? Now, we're not necessarily trying to sell them Judaism. We're not trying to, let's say, convince them to convert to Judaism, but we're trying to sort of, I guess, give them a bit of a picture of what Judaism is so that they can then sort of make a decision for themselves about whether they want to join or not. So
it's interesting because I feel like the obvious would be ones that everyone sort of associates, which is kosher, Shabbos, festivals,
the festivals, dress code. Interesting.
I just feel like the ones that stick out more obviously are those, but there's so many. I feel like if you were to tell them about Judaism, we'd be saying about its real strong identity that comes with observing everything. It's like you really feel Jewish the more you do, the more you partake in, and the more involved you are in the actual culture of Judaism as well, not just like the natural observance. You're really embracing all of it.
Right.
I think the 4 obvious ones would be the ones that I feel like everyone just associates with.
Right, like the big, Shabbat.
It's tradition, isn't it?
The traditional stuff, candles, Shabbat candles for a woman, for example.
Yeah.
But for a man, I guess you maybe say, well, you're going to have to put a capel on your head every day. The stuff that's more obvious to the outer image, I guess.
Interesting. Yes, okay, so that's a very, very interesting approach. Hi, Melissa. I'm assuming is Melissa. Nice to have you join as well. Okay, so basically, what we're talking about is what would you the 3 or 4 commands that you would tell that someone who's potentially wanted to convert. Now, what we just finished Shavuot, right? Now, Shavuot is the festival where we commemorate how we as a Jewish people receive the Torah, right? That as a nation. Now, on Shavuot, we read the book of Ruth. Now, what is the book of Ruth? And I know we discussed it a little bit previously, but we're going to go in a different angle today. So the book of Ruth is really very, very unique in the books of the Tanakh. It's the only book that tells about the story of one person and not the story that happened to the whole Jewish people. It's the only story in it. So what is it? It's really the story of how one person, an individual, accepted the Torah, right? So for us, the truth is it's a very, very relevant book because at the end of the day, we finish Shavuot, but at any time as a Jew, we grapple with how do we as an individual, what's our individual relationship with Judaism? What's our individual relationship with Torah? So I think what's fascinating about the book of Ruth and the story of Ruth is it tells about how she came to accept Torah in her life. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to go through with you, because the story of how Ruth became Jewish is that she was very, very inspired by her mother-in-law, Naomi. And when Naomi, just in brief, I'll catch anyone that's not familiar with the story, I'll catch you up to date. Naomi and her husband Elimelech were very, very wealthy, and there was a famine in Israel. So they moved from Israel to Moab. It was considered a failing on their part. And their two sons married. The reason why it was considered a failing is because they should have stayed in Israel and supported the Jews in Israel. Instead, they went and left the Jews in their time of need. They moved to Moab. Their two sons married Moabite girls, princesses, and they both Moab. It's again, there is a backstory behind it as well. Maybe after that I'll catch you up on it. But so it was a nation in biblical times, and they married Moabite girls. They both died, right? Both of her sons. So Naomi at this point has lost her husband and has lost her two sons. So she's left with her two daughters-in-law, and that's it. Like she's finished. So she decides she's going to move back to Israel. So she goes back to Israel, and her two daughters-in-law, Ruth and Orpah, say to her, "We want to come with you." Right? Wherever you go, we want to go. They don't want to leave her. And she tells them why. I'm an old, bitter woman. You're young. You've got your whole life ahead of you. You stay here. Your father is a king. You're living in the lap of luxury. Why would you want to come with me? I've got nothing for you. And Orpah says, okay. And she stays. And Ruth says, no. She says, wherever you go, I will go. Your people are my people, your God is my God. And she's committed to, which fascinatingly enough, and this is a little bit what we spoke about last time, is it shows that what inspired Ruth was her mother-in-law, right? When she was connected to a real life Torah Jew who embodied Torah values, that's what inspired her. That's what started her on a journey. But we see that she was committed, right? She said, I'm going to stay with you. So there is a medrash that tells us about what Naomi told Ruth, that there are 6 things that Naomi told Ruth about Judaism. Right. And I think it's fascinating because it gives us a little bit of a structure of what Judaism is about. So we're gonna look through it, and I'm going to read it out because there are people that are joining us on Zoom or Instagram that don't have the papers. So we'll read it out, and you'll tell me whether you're surprised by what you find on the paper. Okay. So the medrash says that there are 6 things that Naomi told Ruth. When Ruth made that commitment, I want to become Jewish. There were 6 things that she told her about what Judaism is. Number 1, what did she tell her? She told her that there's a body of law called Tchum Shabbat, that on Shabbos, you're not allowed to walk past a certain distance, right? On Shabbat, let's say it's past the boundaries of the edge of the city, right? So if you're living in a city, it doesn't really apply. When it does come up is if you go away and you're living, you go, let's say, away for a Shabbat, and you're in a place that's deserted. There's only a certain amount you're allowed to walk on Shabbat past the edge of the city. Now, when you hear a rule like that, what does it tell you about Judaism? Let's try and figure it out. Let's try and figure out what Ruth is really telling, what Ruth is being told about Judaism. What does it tell you when you hear something like that?
I just feel like it's the same thing, because obviously if you're going to do a walk out of a city, that's quite strenuous. And it's quite, I don't know about you guys, I don't want to do that much walking on Shabbat. So I would say that's like, stop in your tracks and look around what's around you and stay within your community and rest within your community rather than traveling. Okay, so you're right, but I'd like you to take a step back and pretend because you're already saying like step 2, but imagine if you're new to Judaism, right, and you've never really heard about Shabbat, right, but you'll hear about this idea that, because she's not just telling her about Shabbat, she's not just saying there's a concept that one day a week we have Shabbat, but she's telling her that there's a law on Shabbat that you're not allowed to walk too far.
right? So what does that kind of tell you about Judaism? As opposed to, let's say, if she just told her, one day a week, we have a family Friday night dinner. Any ideas? And anyone that's on Instagram or Zoom, you're more than welcome to.
Is it almost like to err on the side of caution, maybe like quite deep and meaningful, and to be a bit more on your toes, perhaps?
Okay. I mean, I definitely hear that.
That's just that Shabbat's a different day to the rest of the week.
It's a different day, and what makes it different? Oh, there we go, right? I mean, it's before you go into strict or not, it's already starting off by telling us that there's boundaries in Judaism, right? Because if you think about it, a lot of times in Judaism, a lot of, and it depends where you are on the religious spectrum, but I think no matter where you fall on the religious spectrum, we like to keep something to God for like those special occasions, right? The bar mitzvahs, the bat mitzvahs, the baby namings, the weddings, or, the flip side, right? Like a lot of times if someone's going through a tough time, then they'll pull God out and say, oh, everything's for the best or whatever, have faith or whatever. But what this is telling us is that, no, Judaism is much more than that. Judaism affects our everyday life, right? There are boundaries. It's not just a hobby. It's not just something you pull out that special dress that you pull out the cupboard for special occasions. It's a special thing that you pull out the cupboard, right? The kippah, whatever it is. It's something that if you're going to choose to embrace that, she's telling, Naomi is telling her daughter-in-law Ruth, it's going to put boundaries in your life, right? It's about letting God be our God, right? It's not just about relying on him when things get tough and pulling out the prayer book then, but it's about allowing him into our life on a daily basis. So that's the first one that she's telling her is right. She's choosing to tell her that Judaism's not just a hobby. It's a daily thing, and it puts boundaries into our lives. The second thing she tells her, and this is an interesting one, I don't think anyone would have come up with one of these. So there's a law, there's a group of laws in Judaism called yichud, right? Anyone knows what they are? Mm-hmm. So what are yichud? It's the laws of being secluded with someone of the opposite gender. So in Jewish law, there are quite actually detailed laws about when a man and woman are allowed to be together. And what's the idea behind the laws? Is basically it's to protect the man or the woman from having the forbidden relationship, right? And it's the laws go into who's allowed to, who's not allowed to, how long, etc., etc. When you hear that law, and be honest with me, what do you think?
We have not any self-control.
Do you not have any self-control? What else? I mean, and what you're really saying there is, if I can, is you're saying, like, don't we have self-control? I think what you're really saying is it's a bit extreme. No, it sounds extreme. It really, really sounds extreme if you think about it. Seriously, I mean, if you think about it, like I'll give you an example of a way yichud would apply, right? If someone has a secretary, right? If a man has a female secretary, for example, and he wants to meet her, he's not allowed to lock the door, right? Someone else has to be able to walk into whatever. There's different laws or whatever. But what you would say is, and I think, look, I think what Lisa said, and I think there's a lot of agreement that people would listen to that and say, come on, that's extreme, right? It sounds extreme. I want to tell you a story, and I believe this is a true story. That once, I believe this happened in California. There was a case with bottled water that it came out that there was a particular brand of bottled water that they discovered that it had a chemical inside the water, and the chemical inside the water raised a person's risk of getting cancer by 1, I believe, in a million, right? Would you drink that water? No.
Be frightened, you go for it.
No. Would you give it to your kids?
No.
Never, right? No for both of them. Why? It's 1 in a million, right? It's 1 in a million. Why are we so extreme about that? Is because the thing that we are protecting is so valuable, right? If you're protecting your life, I'll take the other water, thank you very much, right? If I'm protecting my child, I will take the other water thing, even though you're going to turn around and you say it's like a 1 in a million chance, like what's the thing? But you're not taking an extra risk when the thing that you're protecting is valuable. And this is what Ruth is telling her here. She's taking a body of laws in Judaism, which seems extreme. And I want to talk about that in a sec. And it seems extreme. And you can say to her, you can look at it and you can see, wow, that's so extreme. But when you understand that the thing that you're protecting is so important and so valuable, you realize it's not extreme. And it happens to be like, I really started to appreciate these rules of yichud when I became a mother, and my kids, when I started to hire babysitters, right? Because then you sort of realize, like, I have my oldest is a boy, and then I have a couple of girls, and there's laws about babysitters. Can you hire a babysitter of the opposite gender? If your children are under a certain age, you have one child, and you have to hire two, whatever. And it's as a parent, I felt like the laws were, besides for the protecting, obviously, of relationships, because if you think about it, very few, and this is not a class about yichud, very few affairs start from affairs, right? Like very few affairs, they usually start somewhere else, and then it goes a bit further, and it gets a bit further, right? And it's the same thing with God forbid, cases of abuse or stuff like that. It's like if we can teach our kids that these safeguards, and a lot of the safeguards are safeguards that they teach you anyway, like tell you, if your kids are going to someone else's, whatever, like don't play in the bedroom, stuff like that. Like it's things that it sounds extreme, but when you realize what we're trying to protect, it makes sense. So so far, those are two of the 6 things that she told us. She says, number one, to understand that this is going to, I'm going to run out of battery. Where is the charger? Give me a moment while I just plug in my computer. Sorry, she was on this earlier. I don't want to knock the Zoom people off, like I did a couple of weeks ago. Note to self: please remember to hello everyone, to charge up the computer next time earlier. All right, we're all good.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Why do you reckon she used yichud as an option rather than Taras Mishpacha?
That's a brilliant question, and it's interesting. Martin asked the same question.
Really? That's funny.
That's hilarious. Yes.
Right.
I gave this class on Saturday night, and at the end of it, Martin asked the exact same question, and and I think, and by the way, for anyone that didn't hear, the question was, why do you think she used the laws of yichud as opposed to Taharat HaMishpacha, which are the laws of family purity? And again, I don't 100% know, but my feeling is that if you're thinking about, if the message that she wanted to give her was, the thing that you're trying to protect is so valuable, and that's why we go to the extreme, I think yichud particularly shows it. Taharat Mishpacha is beautiful. It adds to our marriage. The laws of Taharat Mishpacha, for anyone that doesn't know, are the laws, we have to do a session on that properly at some point. I did one on seminar. I'm actually going to do a repeat on Zoom at some point, and I'll open it up for anyone that wants it as well. So what was to say? The laws of Taharat Mishpacha are great because they're really about how we enhance our marriage. Yes, yeah. I gave a class on intimacy on the seminar, and I'm going to do a repeat. I was supposed to do it last night, but whatever. I forgot about it. It's a long time. But whereas yichud, I think, really talks about how we protect the sanctity of our relationships, right? It's not just about making our marriage the best marriage that it can be, but it's more about protecting our relationships and protecting society, really.
I guess maybe where she wasn't at stage of her life as well, she wasn't actually married, was she?
She was not married yet.
Yeah.
No, you're right. She was not married as well. That could also be a reason, but it's fascinating that Martin asked the same question. Okay, yes, I did, Maddie. That's right. Nice to have you here. All right. So the third thing. Okay. Now this might be something that you may have said. Okay. And this is what she told her. There are 613 mitzvot. So what does that kind of tell you when you hear that there are 613 mitzvot?
Wow,
That's a lot.
But it's not all for men, it's not all for women. It's not all
Right.
for
So
festivals.
yeah, so there are 613 mitzvahs, and the truth is, not one person can do all 613. And I think on a daily basis, that if you go through it, there's about 14 or so that are applicable to our lives. But what does it tell? And I think both of you said it, is all three of you said it, is that, wow, that's a lot, right? We're talking about something here that's going to impact our daily life. And there's a fascinating, I saw this, that in Israel, they apparently at one point they wanted to do a survey, and they wanted to count how many Orthodox Jews there were. I don't know what the survey was about, but what's interesting is that they came up with a dilemma, like, how do you define who's Orthodox, right? Because you can have different people who call themselves Orthodox. Like, how do you define who is Orthodox? And I don't know why they needed to do it for the study, but they came up with a decision. They said that their cutoff is anyone that keeps Taharat HaMishpacha, right? Again, these laws of family purity. And this is the reasoning why they said it, okay? They said the reason why it is because someone who is Orthodox, someone who's not Orthodox cannot imagine that God is going to tell me what to do in my private bedroom, right? In my intimate life. Can't imagine it. Whereas someone who is Orthodox can't imagine that God wouldn't have something to tell us about how to live our intimate lives, right? So again, what's the switch here? The switch is that is Judaism something that we kind of bring out on special occasions? Or is Judaism something that really, really impacts our everyday lives? And she's telling her the 630 mitzvahs, the thing that you said is that this is real, right? This is going to be this is going to make a decision on impact on your everyday lives. Okay. Now the fourth one is she told her about idolatry, right? That in Judaism you're not allowed to have idol. You're not allowed to serve idols. Is that something that we kind of grapple with nowadays?
I would say in a more social media aspect, yes.
What
not in the old biblical ways, obviously, because theirs was actual like statues and stuff like that, where now it's we can idolize celebrities and influencers and all this type of stuff. Interesting,
very interesting. So what do you mean by idolize? That's
like you follow their every move, their dress code, what they tell you to do, what to buy. You can get some people that are so obsessive that they literally will follow them wherever they go. They find out they're doing a conference and they'll follow them, and it's like they'll have posters all over the walls and literally wish to be them, have haircuts like them, literally and shrine.
Yeah, and also, and I think, look, it's definitely something that we can look at and sort of evaluate for ourselves how healthy our relationship with social media is. I think there's also something to bear in mind is like, what's the flip side of idolatry, right? Why is idolatry forbidden in Judaism? Is because Judaism, we're supposed to not just believe in one God, but believe in God as the ultimate power, right? The ultimate power of our life. Now, is that, yes, influence on social media? Is that something that is relevant to our lives? It's absolutely, right? Because so many times, we and again, I think again, it doesn't matter how religious or not religious someone is, like this is relevant. Like so many times we have like something will come up and like we trust in, whatever it is, right? Like the doctors and God, right? Or the government and God, or the boss and God, right? And it doesn't, it's a balance. It's a balance. Interesting. I see it's anything that occupies our lives more than Hashem. That's a very, very interesting perspective. But it's a balance that we have to do because we have to live in the world, right? If a person's sick, they have to go to the doctor, right? If a person needs a job, they have to go through the process of applying for a job and going for interviews. But the trick is to understand that it all comes from God, right? That yes, I'm going to the doctor, and please God, God will give the doctor the right medication for me, or whatever it is, right? God will send that thing. And I think so that's the other thing so what have we got so far, right? That she's telling about the structure of Judaism there. It's building a little bit of a picture right now of what's Naomi telling Ruth what the picture of Judaism is. She's starting by telling her Judaism has boundaries, right? It's not just a hobby. It's got boundaries. It's going to put boundaries into your life, right? It's going to, and those boundaries are a good thing, but they're going to be boundaries that you're going to have to accept. And those boundaries may sound like, wow, it's extreme. But when you realize how valuable the thing that you're trying to protect is, you'll understand that those boundaries are important, right? And then she says that there are many, many boundaries, right? It affects all areas of our life. And she said, and the next thing is that we this thing, right? And we're going to talk about what that thing is that you have to accept that God is the power. God is the one that runs your life and is in charge of your life. And God is the one that you have to rely on. Now, the next two things that she says are fascinating. These are going to make you stop and think, right? The fifth one is she told her about capital punishment. What do you think when you hear that? Right. Yes, Victorian school days. Yeah, and I want to tell you something. Capital punishment, we don't have capital punishment nowadays, right? In Judaism, and it's beyond the scope of this class, like that concept of when was capital punishment and what the point of it was. But I think what it tells us really is to understand that our actions have consequences. Our actions, sometimes, a person can feel like we're kind of just puppets. I do this, I do that. It doesn't really make much of a difference. What Ruth is telling her is, no, your actions have real impact, right? What you choose to do, right? If you choose to become Jewish and you choose to do a mitzvah, you can really actually build something. You choose to do something wrong, you can actually, your actions actually have real impact. Like if you think about it, if someone could do something so terrible that they deserve capital punishment, that tells you that what they're doing has value, right? It has value. If you think about people that deserve the capital punishment, for whatever states they do it in America, right? They're doing things that are creating terrible harm, right? And so what she's telling her is that your actions have real impact. It's not just like, a game. Its actions have real impact. And then she finishes, her last thing is she says, fascinating, again, the law about where are executed Jewish criminals buried. So that, again, beyond the scope of the class, but that depending on what the crime was in the days when they had capital punishment, a Jewish criminal who was executed would be buried in a certain part of Judas, of the cemetery, right? So she's telling her, why do you think she would tell that to her?
I guess so that you can realize how you can be trying to be a part of Judaism, but very easily also not be a part of it, and you can be so easily, I guess, embarrassed and pushed to the side for doing the wrong thing.
Maybe making her aware that there's different aspects of,
Not exactly yet. Okay, so what is she telling her is that she's telling her that your actions, what she told her before was your actions have real impact, but here she's telling her your actions have a lasting impact, right? Someone can do something in this world that can impact them after after life is over, and really that's the crux of Judaism, right? That this thing that we're trying to protect is our soul. Right, and our soul is eternal, right? So the actions that we do here is not just if I do a kindness for someone else, then I'm helping them out today. It makes an impact on my soul. It makes an impact on their soul, and that lives on forever. Right. So what she's telling her here is that by sharing this idea with her is that she's telling her that our actions have an impact, real impact, and that impact is forever. So let's try and pull together what Naomi told Ruth. Is she told her she wanted to give her, right, you want to join the Jewish people, and this is basically Judaism's approach to converts. We do not go out and proselytize people, but if a sincere person wants to become Jewish, then they are welcome, and they are once a person becomes Jewish, there is a mitzvah to make them feel comfortable forever. But she's telling you, you want to know what Judaism is about? Let me sort of give you the structure of what Judaism is. She says Judaism is not just a hobby, right? It's something that is real, and it puts boundaries in our life, right? And boundaries this is a whole nother discussion. Boundaries are a good thing, right? Boundaries is what helps us develop and thrive, right? But you're going to have to accept that Judaism is going to put boundaries into your life, right? And those boundaries at times may seem extreme, but when you realize what you're trying to protect, right? We're going to talk about that in 5 and 6, what you're trying to protect. You'll understand why those boundaries are important. And that's a whole nother, you can look into each of the mitzvahs and see what it is it's trying to protect, right? And there are 613 of these different boundaries. So it means that it's big, right? It's going to impact your everyday life. And this is a relationship, right? The next one, idolatry, it's a relationship with God, a relationship where you connect really to God and realize that He is the ultimate power, and the actions that we do, they are real, right? They have real impact both in this world and in the world to come for eternally. So that's a little bit of the snapshot that Naomi told Ruth, and Ruth said yes. Thank you for taking the time to listen. I'd love to hear if this resonated with you. And if you'd like to discuss it further, you can get in touch with me. You can find me on Instagram at itsgilaross, or you can WhatsApp me. My number is in the show notes, and we can set up a time to discuss this further. Thank you for taking the time to listen. Have a wonderful day, and please take a moment to rate, review, subscribe, and share this podcast to anyone else who would benefit from it.